Welcome to the Inner Light Companion podcast, a space for soulful conversation and deep spiritual exploration. I'm your host, Tamara Ridge, and I'm honored to be your companion on this journey. Here, we explore life's mysteries, challenges, and transformations through the lens of universal spiritual principles. Truths that transcend religion and speak directly to the heart. I believe that spiritual healing is at the core of all healing. It's not about choosing whether to heal or to build your spiritual life. It's about healing through the building of it. When we deepen our spiritual connection, we create space for the rest of our healing to unfold. With patience, courage, and an open heart, we'll honor the path of healing, awakening, and becoming. This isn't therapy or advice giving. It's a meeting of souls, a space to listen deeply, ask meaningful questions, and rediscover the wisdom that already lives inside you. Whether you're seeking meaning, navigating change, or simply longing for a compassionate presence, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Every path has a beginning, and this episode is mine. Today, I want to share the experiences and insights that brought me to spiritual counseling and to this space we're creating together through this podcast. As you listen, I'd like you to gently consider, when did your own spiritual path begin? What early moments made you aware of something greater? My hope is that you'll hear echoes of your own story. Moments of searching, awakening, healing, or longing for something deeper. This is the heart of why I started this podcast, to offer a space for reflection, connection, and soul-centered guidance for anyone walking the sacred, sometimes messy, path of transformation. So let's begin with the story behind it all. This is the short version of why I'm here. It comes down to really a lifelong calling, a pull toward spirit, and a deep desire to help people reconnect with the divine. As a marriage and family therapist for almost 30 years, I've always believed that healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about clearing the blocks that keep us from reaching something greater, something bigger than those solitary moments that could define suffering or joy. At its heart, my work has always been spiritual work. To my mind, I've been helping people heal from trauma so they can step closer to the universal truths waiting inside them. Truths that trauma often buries or distorts. But my story started long before my professional path. I grew up in a home that felt more unhappy than warm, more unfriendly than safe. My parents were Mormon, and even as early as age 2, I remember sensing that trust wasn't something I could count on. So pause for a second and think about this. What messages did your childhood environment send you about safety and trust? How did your early spiritual or emotional impressions shape your view of the divine? For me, that sensation led to turning inward, seeking comfort from something greater. Some people say that newborns still carry a memory of living with God, and I'm not sure if that's true for me. But I do remember feeling a presence, one that I could trust, especially when safety wasn't a given in my environment. As I got older, I poured myself into the church. It gave me a sense of identity, purpose, and belonging, at least for a while. The truth is, I never really fit in at church because I was anxious. And as often happens, anxiety doesn't exactly pave the way for deep connections. Have you ever tried to fit in somewhere spiritually only to feel more alone? What does your body feel when you remember those times? I remember one morning when I was 16, driving to early seminary, a daily religious class for Mormon teenagers before school. I almost hit a skunk on the road. The smell of that skunk clung to my car so hard that it made me feel sick. I was literally sick to my stomach. But I didn't go home. I still walked into that classroom and I sat down with 20 other teenagers, completely unaware of just how bad I probably smelled. I remember sitting there feeling sick because of the smell, but it never connected. Looking back, I realized that anxiety, unfriendly home life, and the lack of social awareness all shaped that moment. If I'd known how I came across, I never would have walked into that room. I share this story to help you understand what kind of inner world I was navigating and how often I felt disconnected, even when I was trying so hard to belong. It's tough to look back with perfect clarity. I can't say for sure whether my sense of not belonging had to do with how I came across to others, but my desire to please God was real and deep. In my heart, I believed that if I could be pleasing enough to God, I'd be worthy to serve Him in the church. I longed to work with the youth, to guide women in spiritual living, to share the kind of faith that I lived every day. And I did live a spiritual life. I had profound experiences with the divine, many of which I'll share with you in future episodes. But even with that personal devotion, what I consistently encountered, whether from local leaders or those in the highest levels of church leadership, was a painful disconnect. My direct, intimate relationship with the divine often clashed with the expectations and the directions I was given as a member of the church. It became clear that the way Spirit moved through me didn't always fit the mold of what was allowed or affirmed. When I was 18, I remember offering a prayer that came straight from my soul. God, if you're there, and if this Book of Mormon and this church truly are your path, then show me, and I'll live by it for the rest of my life. But if it's not true, please show me that too, and I'll go find what is. There wasn't an immediate answer. It actually came slowly over the course of about 20 years. A series of quiet realizations that unfolded, gradually making it clear that it was time for me to leave. I remember the exact moment. I was standing in my living room weighing the cost. I have a full social support system. If I ever need financial help, it's there. If I leave the church, I lose all of that. Do I really want to do this? And the answer that came was undeniable. I can't not. As you hear this, I invite you to reflect. Have you ever felt called to make a change, even if it cost you everything familiar? What helped you trust that inner knowing? For me, I left. It was a journey I'll share more about in a future episode. But I didn't leave my longing for God. That desire for divine connection never left me. The only framework I'd ever known, though, was the one where I'd been told how to pray, how to act, how to please heaven. Leaving that system felt like a falling into a deep, dark hole, not of depression, but disorientation. For so long, I'd believed I knew the answers to the mysteries of the universe. Then suddenly I realized I didn't know anything at all. I had to rebuild everything from the ground up. I want you to take a second right now and just ask yourself, what beliefs have I had to unlearn? What truth am I discovering underneath those old patterns? Leaving the church was the hardest thing I've ever done. Stepping away and then slowly rebuilding my faith from scratch. I spent nearly a decade searching before I finally found a spiritual path that put God within reach without a middleman. And since then, everything has changed. I now move through the world with a deeper sense of trust because I know I have a direct connection to the divine. I don't need anyone to grant me permission to approach God. I don't need to earn worthiness. That journey from external spiritual authority to internal spiritual authenticity was the beginning of everything for me. And while I don't believe everyone needs to walk the same path of deconstruction and rebuilding, my experience has given me a deep sensitivity to the terrain. I know what it feels like to live in confusion, to carry trauma, to feel disconnected from yourself or from God. And I also know what it feels like to find your way back into the light. That's the heart of my work. As a spiritual counselor, I don't offer a one-size-fits-all answer. Instead, I use a variety of tools and practices gathered from years of study, personal experience, and clinical work to help each person discover what divine connection looks and feels like for them. Whether someone connects through silence or ritual, meditation or movement, sacred texts or the natural world, it's all welcome here. My role is to support the unfolding of that connection in a way that's deeply personal, meaningful, and life-giving, because your path to the divine is as unique as your fingerprint, and no one else can walk it for you. So I just want you to take a second right now and take a breath and ask yourself, what is your unique path asking of you today? Where do you feel closest to the divine? My personal journey was unfolding right alongside my professional path. Since 1995, I've worked as a marriage and family therapist, and over the years, I've sat with hundreds of people carrying deep pain. What I encountered time and again was trauma. Sometimes it had a name, often it didn't, but its fingerprints were everywhere. In anxious relationships, chronic self-doubt, spiritual confusion, emotional shutdown, and that aching sense of never quite being enough. What became undeniably clear to me, especially as someone deeply committed to both healing and spiritual growth, was this. Trauma doesn't just impact our minds or our bodies, it clouds our ability to feel close to the divine. Many of the people I worked with had no idea that their disconnection from God, their intuition, or their sense of purpose might be rooted in old, unhealed wounds. And the truth is, their stories stirred up my own. Their pain mirrored parts of mine that I hadn't yet faced, and that opened the door to my own deeper search. I held the belief that true soul-level healing could help people move closer to the universe if that's what they longed for. That belief guided my search for tools that could go beyond symptom relief and reach the root. Eventually, that search led me to develop what would become the trauma erase method, a process born from both personal and professional experience, and one I now share freely on my YouTube channel. I've linked it for you in the show notes in case you're interested in that kind of healing. So even when I wasn't saying it out loud, spirituality was always at the heart of my work. And over time, the quiet thread of that truth became something more. It became a calling, a pull toward the path of spiritual counseling where I could finally bring every part of my experience together, the clinical, the personal, and the sacred. For me, spiritual counseling is about being your inner light companion, a soul friend who walks beside you as you reconnect with your own divine wisdom. We begin by inviting the presence of your higher power into whatever specific challenge or question you're facing. And from there, I listen deeply and without judgment. Not to offer answers from my perspective, but to understand your journey as if I were walking in your shoes. I ask questions that help you tune in to your own inner knowing. With the guidance of your highest self, you begin to discover the spiritual insights already within you, waiting to be heard. This work is the calling I've known since childhood. It wasn't fulfilled within the structure of the Mormon Church, but it is the path that fulfills my Dharma. Though I've received formal training in spiritual counseling through Ananda, my approach isn't defined by any one tradition. It's shaped by lived experience, personal healing, and spiritual tools that make building intuition a grounded, step-by-step process, one that anyone can follow. So I'd invite you right now to just take a second and reflect. What has shaped your current spiritual beliefs? Are there tools or moments that felt especially healing for you? I used to believe that connection with the divine was reserved for a chosen few, those seen as worthy by external standards. But now I know that connection belongs to everyone. Yes, even you. So what can you expect when you listen to the Inner Light Companion podcast with me as your soul friend? You'll hear stories of inspiration, healing, and transformation alongside spiritual tools delivered without dogma. My goal is to uplift you, encourage you, and support you on your unique spiritual path. But this isn't just a podcast, it's a community, a place where your story matters. I'll invite you to share your experiences too, because we grow when we witness each other. So many people who grew up in painful or disconnected homes still feel deeply supported by the divine through moments of mystery, love, or even miracles. When you share those stories with me, I'll share them here so we can remind each other You're not alone, and grace finds its way to all of us. In each episode, I'll also offer practical spiritual tools like guided visualizations, affirmations, and intuitive practices to help you deepen your connection with the universe and find clarity within. Before we close today, I'd love to guide you through a brief visualization to help you connect with your own spiritual history. So let's do that. Wherever you are, I invite you to take a moment to get comfortable. If you're able, close your eyes. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw and take a slow, deep breath in and out. Now, bring your awareness to your heart. Imagine a soft, warm light glowing there. This is your inner light, your connection to the divine, always present, even when it feels far away. As you sit with that light, allow yourself to drift back in time, gently, with no pressure or expectation. Can you recall a moment when you felt something greater holding you? Maybe it was a time when you felt safe for no explainable reason, or when a coincidence seemed too perfect to be chance. Or maybe it was a quiet moment in nature or a whisper in your heart that gave you strength. Just allow one memory to rise to the surface, no matter how small. Let yourself sit with it. Breathe into it. Feel the energy of that moment again. The presence, the peace, the love. Now bring your awareness back to this moment. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes. I'd like you to rest in this experience. And as you find yourself sitting here, I encourage you to open your journal. Ask yourself as you journal today, what spiritual questions or longings are stirring within you? If your story could be a light for someone else, what part would you share first? Let this episode be a beginning, not just of a podcast, but of a deeper connection with your own truth. Thank you for being here. I'm honored to walk this path with you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Inner Light Companion podcast. If something we explored today stirred something in you, I invite you to carry that light forward, one small moment, one sacred breath at a time. This is a journey of us, not just my voice, but our shared longing to walk into deeper connection with spirit, with each other, and with the quiet truth within. You are not alone on this path. If something touched you today, or if you feel called to share your own unfolding story, I'd be honored to hear it. You can stay connected with me through the podcast contact page at innerlightcompanion.com. Until next time, may you walk gently, listen deeply, and trust the light within. Be well and take sweet care of your soul.